Dear friends, we welcome you to our cozy corner of the mysterious and the unexplained. Today, the discussion will revolve around something many people have felt but have not always dared to speak about aloud: the presence of those who are no longer physically with us, but somehow remain nearby. Are you familiar with the feeling when suddenly, in an old house, a floorboard creaks for no apparent reason? Or when you catch a glimpse of movement out of the corner of your eye, but turn to find no one there? Perhaps you have experienced an inexplicable sensation that someone is in the room, even though you know for certain that you are alone. I recall the story of a person who was visiting an old house belonging to friends in a small town in Vermont. It was a quiet autumn evening, and everyone had already settled into their rooms. The guest was sitting in an armchair with a book when he suddenly felt someone's gaze upon him. Then, he heard quiet footsteps behind him, as if someone were tiptoeing up to him. His heart skipped a beat as he slowly turned around, but saw no one. Yet the presence of some invisible entity was so palpable that he even said hello out loud. The most surprising thing was that he felt no fear at all. On the contrary, a sense of calm and protection washed over him. The next morning, when the guest told the homeowners about this, they smiled and said that he had met Grandma Eleanor, the first owner of the house, who, according to them, still watches over everyone who lives there. They perceived her presence as something natural and even comforting. Since then, many people have started to pay attention to similar stories, and it is astonishing how numerous they are. From quiet footsteps in an empty hallway to the aroma of familiar perfume in a room once occupied by a long-gone person. From the sudden activation of a radio that starts to play the favorite song of a loved one, to the sensation of a touch on the shoulder when someone is going through a difficult time in life. Perhaps you are now recalling something similar from your own experience. Maybe these memories evoke a sense of awe, or perhaps warmth and gratitude. In any case, you're not alone in your experiences. Millions of people around the world encounter phenomena that science has yet to fully explain. So why do some souls remain in homes after death? This question has intrigued humanity for many centuries. From ancient legends and myths to modern stories of paranormal phenomena, people have always tried to understand what happens to the soul after the physical body ceases to exist. If there is a continuation, why do some souls, instead of moving on, remain attached to earthly places? The scientific community offers rational explanations, from psychological phenomena and projections of our subconscious to electromagnetic fields and infrasound vibrations that can cause people to feel the presence of something supernatural. Psychologists discuss how the human brain is wired to find patterns even where there are none, as well as how strongly our perceptions are influenced by expectations and beliefs. On the other hand, spiritual and religious traditions around the world provide their own explanations. Many believe that the soul undergoes a certain journey after death, and sometimes this journey can be interrupted or delayed for various reasons. Some traditions speak of the necessity of proper burial rites to help the soul find its way. Others tell of souls that stay behind to complete unfinished business or to convey an important message. Interestingly, many ancient cultures did not see anything unusual in this. For example, in the traditions of Native Americans, there's often the idea that ancestors continue to watch over their descendants and sometimes interact with the world of the living. Similar beliefs can be found in cultures around the world, from East Asia to Africa and Europe. In our modern world, where scientific explanations for everything are so valued, many people are hesitant to talk about their experiences with the inexplicable. However, the number of such stories does not diminish. People continue to report strange occurrences in their homes, especially in old buildings with rich histories. In this discussion, we will not dismiss either the scientific or the spiritual perspective. Instead, let us look at the most common explanations for why some souls may remain attached to certain places, especially to the homes they once lived in. Let us explore this question with respect for different opinions and an openness to the mysteries that our world still holds from us. One of the most common reasons why souls may linger in the earthly realm is unfinished business and strong emotional attachments. Imagine a person who invested their soul into their home, garden, or collection of artwork throughout their life. It is not surprising that even after death, their soul may remain attached to what was the center of their earthly life. Barbara from Ohio encountered such a case. After purchasing a beautiful two-story home in a suburb of Cleveland, she began to notice strange things. Books on the shelves would change places. Garden tools appeared in locations different from where she had left them, and at night she heard sounds as if someone were sorting through records in the living room. Local residents informed her about the previous owner, Mr. Greenwood, who had lived in that house for over 50 years and had amassed an impressive collection of vinyl records. He loved his home and his collection so much that he apparently couldn't part with them even after death, the neighbors said. Interestingly, when Barbara decided to carefully organize the collection and even play those records from time to time, the strange occurrences became much less frequent. It seemed that Mr. Greenwood's spirit found peace, seeing that his treasures were being taken care of. Paranormal specialists often note that personal belongings can serve as anchors for the soul. Family photographs, heirloom jewelry, beloved books, or musical instruments. All of these items, imbued with the energy of their owners, can maintain a connection between worlds. Sometimes a soul remains due to the desire to finish what was started. For example, in the town of Bloomington, there's a story about an artist named James who was working on a large mural for the local library, but died before he could complete it. Librarians often report hearing sounds at night that resemble the movement of a brush against the wall, and in the morning, they sometimes notice small changes in the unfinished details of the mural. Strong emotional attachments can also keep a soul from moving on. A mother worried about the well-being of her children, a husband unwilling to leave his widow, a person who did not have the chance to reconcile with loved ones before death. All these unfinished emotional connections create powerful energetic bonds. It is worth noting that such attachments are not always negative. Many people who feel the presence of their loved ones describe it as a comforting experience, affirming that love can indeed transcend the boundaries between worlds. In such cases, perhaps the soul is not so much stuck as it is consciously choosing to stay nearby to protect and support those it loves. Another common reason why a soul may linger in the earthly realm is sudden or traumatic death. When a person passes unexpectedly, their soul may find itself unprepared for the transition. Imagine the state of confusion and disorientation. The soul seems unaware of what has happened and continues to exist in a familiar space, not understanding its new condition. The Johnson family from a small town in Pennsylvania encountered such a phenomenon after their home was damaged by a fire. After purchasing and restoring the old building, they began to notice strange occurrences. Their little daughter repeatedly talked about a sad lady who looks out the window on the second floor. Later, they learned that a fire had occurred in that house many years ago, in which a young woman, Mary Sutton, had died. According to local residents, she was waiting for her husband to return from the war and likely never learned of his death on the battlefield. She seems to continue waiting, not realizing that decades have passed, said Tom Johnson. Interestingly, when the family hung a wartime photograph in the hallway, found during the renovations, presumably depicting that very couple, the ghost's activity noticeably decreased. Perhaps this helped Mary's soul to realize what was happening and start her journey onward. Such unaware spirits are quite common in places of sudden tragedies, in homes where accidents have occurred, on roads where fatal accidents happen, or in buildings that have witnessed natural disasters. Unlike souls with unfinished business, these entities often appear to be stuck in the last moments of their lives, repeating the same actions. Experts working with this type of phenomenon say that sometimes a simple act of acknowledgement and communication is enough to help a confused soul. Martha Coleman, a well-known medium from Boston, shares, "Often I just explain to the soul what happened and show it the way forward. It's like helping a lost person find their way home." In some ancient traditions, there are specific rituals for souls who died suddenly or violently. For example, in Buddhism, there's a practice of reciting special prayers for 49 days after death to help the soul realize its condition and move on. Many shamanic practices also include sending off rituals for lost souls, aiding them in finding their path to the next stage of existence. Even in the modern world, many people, when faced with similar phenomena, intuitively find ways to help, through prayer, conversation with the invisible presence, or simply a mental wish for peace and light. Sometimes souls remain in homes out of a desire to protect and support their loved ones. This reason differs from unconscious presence or unfinished business. Here, the soul makes a conscious choice to stay close to those it loves, to guard them and help in difficult moments. The story of Tom and Martha from Vermont illustrates such a situation well. After the death of Grandma Edith, who had lived with them for the last 15 years of her life, they began to notice unusual things. On particularly cold nights, the house would inexplicably feel warmer, even though the heating was functioning normally. Their little son, who loved his grandmother very much, often said that Grandma Edith was sitting next to him when he was scared or sad. One day, Martha left her 1-year-old daughter in the room for a few minutes, and when she returned, she saw that the little girl, who had fallen from the bed, was not crying as expected, but lying calmly and smiling, as if someone invisible was comforting her. "We feel that she is still watching over us," Martha said, "especially over the children. And we are not scared at all. On the contrary, there is a feeling that our family is still protected by her love." Similar stories can be heard in many families. The characteristic signs of such a protective presence include sudden help in a critical moment, an inexplicable feeling of comfort during tough times, and even phenomena such as strange coincidences that seem aimed at keeping a person safe from danger. Interestingly, many cultures around the world have traditions that acknowledge and even encourage such a role for ancestors. In Asia, the veneration of ancestor spirits, who are considered protectors of the family, is widespread. In many African traditions, there exists the concept of living dead, those who have physically departed but continue to participate in the lives of their lineage. Even in Western cultures, elements of such an attitude remain. For example, the tradition of keeping photographs of deceased relatives or turning to them in moments of difficult decisions. Psychologists note that the belief in the protective presence of a loved one can have a powerful therapeutic effect, helping to cope with grief and find new strength. Some spiritual practices teach that there exists a constant connection between worlds, and our loved ones, even after physically departing, continue to be part of our lives, helping and guiding us. This understanding transforms death from an absolute end of relationships into a transition to a new level, where love continues to exist, transcending the boundaries of the physical world and continuing to protect those who remain. Another interesting explanation for the presence of invisible entities is linked to the concept of energy imprints. According to this theory, intense emotions and repetitive actions can leave a kind of mark in space, which can then be perceived by sensitive individuals. It is not so much the soul itself, but a recording of events that is reproduced under certain conditions. Many old theaters and concert halls are known for their paranormal phenomena. Workers and visitors to these places often report sightings of ghostly figures that appear during rehearsals or after performances. Some claim to hear voices, applause, or music when the building is empty. Such places are literally saturated with emotions: the excitement of the audience, the anxiety of the performers, the passion for art, explain researchers of paranormal phenomena. It is no wonder that these emotional imprints are preserved for decades. Interestingly, such energy imprints are more commonly found in places with a long history, where emotionally charged events have occurred. In addition to theaters, these can include old hospitals, schools, and courthouses, all of which accumulate the energy of human emotions and actions. It is important to distinguish these energetic imprints from the presence of a conscious soul. Imprints typically repeat the same actions, do not interact with living people, and are not self-aware. They are more like an echo of the past that continues to resonate in the present, rather than an intelligent entity capable of communication. When a person encounters unexplained phenomena in their home, the question often arises, how can one distinguish a real presence from a figment of the imagination or natural causes? There are certain signs that many researchers of paranormal phenomena consider characteristic of the presence of invisible entities. Among the most common physical manifestations are unexplained temperature fluctuations, especially a sudden cold in certain areas of the room, electrical anomalies, flickering lights, appliances turning on by themselves, strange sounds without a visible source, and movement of objects. People often also report specific smells. For example, the sudden aroma of perfume or cigarettes that the deceased person used. However, it is worth remembering that many of these phenomena can have natural explanations. Creaks and knocks in an old house are often caused by the simple expansion and contraction of materials due to changes in temperature. Drafts can create the effect of cold spots, and problems with wiring can lead to unstable operation of devices. The Smith family from Oregon has learned to approach the strange phenomena in their Victorian home with common sense and calm. At first, we were frightened by every creak and knock, says David Smith. But over time, we learned to distinguish the ordinary sounds of an old house from truly unusual phenomena. We even came up with a name for our invisible neighbor, Oliver, and now we see him as part of our family history. It is important to maintain critical thinking when facing unexplained phenomena, but also to be open to the possibility that some things do indeed lie beyond our current understanding of the world. So, we have looked at the main reasons why souls may remain in homes after physical death. Unfinished business and strong attachments, sudden or traumatic death, the desire to protect loved ones, and energy imprints. All of these factors can explain the unusual phenomena that many people encounter in their homes. It is important to remember that most of these presences are not dangerous or malevolent. In most cases, they simply continue to exist alongside us, sometimes not even realizing their state, and at other times consciously choosing to stay close to those they love. If you feel an inexplicable presence in your home, there is no need to be immediately frightened. Many people have learned to coexist peacefully with such phenomena, treating them with respect and understanding. As one woman who has lived in a haunted house for many years said, "I just imagine that it's another family member, only invisible. And sometimes I even feel gratitude for this additional presence of protection and love in our home." Ultimately, even if science still cannot fully explain all these phenomena, they remind us of an important truth. The connections between people, love, and care can transcend even the most seemingly insurmountable boundaries, including the boundary between life and death. Who knows? Maybe these stories about souls that stay close to us are further confirmation that our bonds with loved ones do not end with the last breath but continue, taking on new, unfathomable forms. And there is a comforting beauty and profound meaning in this. Thank you for spending this time with us, exploring the amazing world of phenomena that science has yet to fully explain. Your interest in this topic shows that many of us strive to look beyond the ordinary and understand what happens to those we love after they have gone. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Click the subscribe button right now and turn on notifications so you don't miss new episodes about the mysteries of our world. Your support helps us create more content on the topics that interest you. And also, share your own unusual stories and experiences in the comments. Perhaps your story will become part of one of the upcoming episodes. Until we meet again in the world of the mysterious and the unexplained.